The MVP is honestly a really important award in the NBA. It tells everybody that in the regular season, you were the best player in the league. You put up the best numbers, you did the best with what you had with your team. A value of a player is determined, and it's a pretty big deal. A lot of people in the GOAT conversations and the top 10 and 20 all-time conversations always bring up MVPs as a pretty important statistic. And in this video, I'm talking about this year's MVP according to NBA 2K21. Que pasa to the pack? It is Pack here,
aka your mama's best friend.
Before this video starts, please be an OG, join the pack, and subscribe, and leave a like on the video. It helps the channel out a lot. I want to say something before we officially start, okay? And that is that this year's MVP is very close and not obvious at all. I feel like a lot of seasons there's always like one dude, it's just like, yep, it's him, or it's the other guy next to him. But like this year, you could have said a lot of names. Literally, I think I swear there's been like 6 people you could have said were the MVP this season to this point. But I'm gonna tell you right now who it's not. It's not Kevin Durant, it's not LeBron James, it's not Kyrie, it's not James Harden. These are players that were injured throughout the year. If you have been out a third of the season or more than a third of the season, you're automatically not MVP. You have to actually play. Also, if your team is actually terrible, like terrible, you're also not going to be in the conversation. Okay, so there's 4 players. These players have the highest rating in 2K that have least played 2/3 of the season. The first player is Joel Embiid, 95 overall. Kind of wild that the dude that I had as obvious MVP at the start of the year is last place on this list. That means he's still in contention for MVP, and it's not impossible for him to win it. So I'm going to be doing for every person a helps category and a hurts category. Let's start off with the helps. What helps Joel Embiid in the MVP conversation? Okay, so they are the second best team in the East right now, and even though the East is very top heavy, they're still very good at the top, and they're one of those teams, right? He has his best stats ever by far this season. Joel Embiid's averaging 30 points per game, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1.4 blocks, and has been efficient more than he's ever been in his entire career. Okay, so he's putting up numbers that he's never put up before. I mean, he's been fantastic and extremely dominant offensively. But that's not just what helps him in this conversation. Is it not only that he's been offensively extremely dominant, defensively he's also extremely dominant. That's what helps him more than anybody on this list. I mean, there's another person on this list, but I think that he is easily a player that can completely change the game on both ends of the floor, which is extremely important in basketball and in today's game. And I think that at the beginning of the year, and for the most part, he was obviously the MVP. I mean, this team is good. They're way better than last year, and Joel Embiid has stepped up from last year. So by definition, he's almost right there in MVP conversation. But there's a couple things that have hurt him. First, he's missed 32% of the season. So he hasn't missed a third, but he's right there. I mean, he's missed a lot. And in that span, another player was going off. And that's why it's kind of a debate. Not only that, in the game that he missed, the 76ers still look pretty good. There's a lot of reasons for that. Ben Simmons is still solid. Tobias Harris is played very well in those stretches, and the rest of the team picked up. On top of that, Doc Rivers is looking like a fantastic coach and is trying to shut everybody up. So maybe it's not that Joel Embiid has gotten that much better, even though he has. Maybe it's also because the team has gotten that much better. But still, I still think that he at least deserved to be talked about. And number 3 is one that none of you probably even had in your mind this year, Giannis. So Giannis is a 96 overall, has played most games this year, and yet no one's talking about him. No one's even considering him being an MVP candidate. But let's see the hurts and the helps. Starting with the helps, he is 3rd in the East right now for the Milwaukee Bucks, okay? He is still putting up monster numbers that Giannis just has always put up. 28.5 points per game, 11.4 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.3 blocks, and of course, he's extremely efficient. He hasn't gotten better at shooting. In fact, maybe you could even argue a little worse at shooting. But overall, I mean, these are ridiculous numbers. But these ridiculous numbers that I'm talking about are almost all worse than his past couple seasons. He's slightly worse than last season in every category, except for assists. Yeah, so that being said, I mean, he's not better than last season, and so do you give him the MVP? I mean, this is my reasoning why he doesn't get MVP. I think he got MVP fatigue. This happens to every NBA player. You start giving him an MVP a little too often, and everyone's like, is it really going to be him every season? This happened to LeBron. It happened to Jordan. It's happened to so many great players. It happened to Shaq. You can't just give it to him every year. Like, we know you're great, but like, come on, give someone else a shot. And that might be what people are doing to Giannis. Like, he's an elite defender and elite scorer to this day, but everyone's like, come on, dude, like, come on, give someone else a chance. I mean, the Bucks haven't gotten way better than last season too. So because we don't see that extreme improvement, there's no reason to give you that MVP. No matter what anybody says, the MVP always has a little bit of most improved in it as well. A little touch, a little dash. That's why people are having Julius Randle in the conversation when, let's be real, right? So that's probably why Giannis is not going to get it, but who knows? According to 2K, he's in the conversation. So up next in the conversation is Nikola Jokic. Okay, so in my opinion, this is pretty much the clear-cut MVP. And I think it's going to come down to, when it comes to helps, is his consistency. He has been this good all season long. He has been fantastic from day one to now. It has not changed. Not only that, they're fourth in the West, and this is the hardest conference in the NBA, maybe in NBA history, right? Like, this conference is ridiculous. Plus, they lost their second best player with Jamal Murray, and they're still fourth in the West at the moment. So you can't just take it from Jokic because of anything like that. He's crazy efficient as well, and he's putting up the best numbers he's ever put up with 26 points per game, 11 rebounds, almost 9 assists. So he's almost averaging a triple-double as a center, and he's efficient, and he's shooting 41% from 3 as a center. Yeah, I mean, these numbers alone are screaming MVP to me. But what hurts? What is the reason that Jokic shouldn't be MVP? Maybe nothing. The only thing that I could actually think of is that his defense, it could be better. I mean, he's not a great defender. He's never has been. But I mean, this NBA, what matters is buckets and helping others get buckets. And like, that's what Jokic does better than anybody right now. So it's just, by definition, Jokic is MVP this season. It has to be. But if you're watching this video, you know that that's not the case. There's someone else. Who is it? And at 97 overall, Steph Curry is the highest rated player in the league that is fitting the category of MVP. So why is Steph Curry here? What helps his argument? So the biggest help is that this team without Curry is bad. Andrew Wiggins is the second leading scorer on this team, and he's having a struggle season in terms of scoring. So that's not a good sign. And yet somehow this team is 500 right now in the West. Steph Curry statistically is almost having as good as a season as he had in his MVP seasons before. It's just a little less efficient, but just barely. He's still averaging 31 points per game, which is more than ever, right? Almost 6 rebounds, almost 6 assists, a steal and a half. And then on top of that, he's shooting 50% from the field, 43% from 3. I mean, what are you really arguing here? Why isn't he MVP? The numbers are insane. The team that he's on is bad and that they're kind of winning. Why? The obvious reason as to why this hurts is the record. Duh, it's always the record. You have to be a semi-decent team to win MVP honors. You have to. The only people that were like kind of bad, or a team that was kind of bad that won MVP was Russell Westbrook, but that team wasn't even that bad, like compared to this team, at least record-wise. This team is 10th in the West, okay? So they wouldn't even make the playoffs in a normal format. That's how bad this team is. So all that put together, yes, rating-wise, Steph is MVP, but by definition, I think it's going to be Jokic. But what do you think? Do you agree with 2K, or do you have an opinion of who MVP is? Leave it in the comments below, and if you like the channel, please give it a sub, and I'll see you guys next time.